hours. Tonight, Donald Trump wants to erase his impeachments through a process that will almost certainly open up a debate about his past behavior in office. According to the Wall Street Journal, Trump and his allies have discussed pushing lawmakers to pass a resolution symbolically expunging his first two impeachments. No constitutional procedure exists for undoing an impeachment, but Trump says that it should be done because, quote, "I did nothing wrong." The measure would not be considered until after the midterms, and even then, House Republicans say it could prove difficult to pass, particularly if, obviously, Republicans don't hold on to the House. But this is exactly the kind of thing that people like John Cornyn are warning about. He says to the court, this is what Cornyn said to the New York Times. He said that Senate Republicans believe that Trump was hurting his own party with self-serving decisions and his insistence on slavish loyalty, ultimately setting himself up for a midterm disaster that would pave the way for the most miserable 2 years of his life. And in the interim, Cornyn says, he reserves the right to choose where I'm going to or not going to defer to Mr. Trump. I cannot think of anything that is a worse distraction than relitigating Trump's two impeachments. Before, after the midterms, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't erase the fact that he was the only president impeached twice. It doesn't erase the fact that now the American people will remember that he was impeached twice. And it doesn't do anything for his party. It doesn't do anything to bring down costs. It is only for one purpose, and that is his ego.
Man, look,
so if I were a Republican,
this is the best,
I'd just be pissed.
This is the best idea Donald Trump's had in a very long time, and I think that everyone around the table needs to make sure that Donald Trump, I know you're watching us right now, but please, let's go down this path. I mean, you deserve to have this argument in front of the American people about your impeachments. In fact, I want us to have this discussion in North Carolina. I wanted to have it in Ohio, maybe Maine, Texas, if we're getting a little freaky. We want to make sure that we have this discussion in front of the American public, because as we go down the lack of self-awareness, this is right up there with something Donald Trump should smile about tonight.
Political assassination by the Democrats on President Trump. They have Trump derangement syndrome. They had fake impeachments on President Trump.
What are we even talking about?
He would like his impeachments to be expunged from the record. I don't blame him. It's his legacy. And he's been a target of the Democrats over and over. In fact, they said if they take back the House, they're going to immediately impeach him again. Like, enough is enough. This is so distracting to the American people.
I just want to be clear. Expunging impeachments is not a thing.
It's not a thing.
I had to ask the question. I don't even know if it's possible, so I didn't want to go down that path.
One thing is there's a thing that's in the Constitution, and it is that you can impeach a president. The thing that's not in the Constitution, or anywhere else for that matter, is expunging an impeachment. So this, I mean, to call it symbolic, I think is almost even overstating the thing. It seems like, frankly, a waste of time, or just a transparent play to make Trump feel good on a particular day. What's the point?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you want to use the word symbolic or not, but it's a political statement to say that this wasn't fair when it happened, and you have different political actors who are making a different statement. My view is the impeachments were, I don't know if expunged is the right word, but they were obliterated or done away with when he beat the rap in the Senate. I mean, he was never convicted on any of the charges.
Same thing Bill Clinton said.
Well, and they never. We adjudicated this already, and the political analysis I think is correct. Would be hard to pass. I did interview a member of Congress the other day, Darrell Issa of California, who I think has filed legislation to do this. I think it has a number of co-sponsors. Look, I think it would attract a lot of Republican votes, but would it attract all the Republican votes or enough Republican votes? I don't know the answer to that. I agree with Carla. I think if the Democrats take back the House, these old impeachments will be the least of anybody's concerns, because they'll move on another one immediately.
But do you think it's a helpful message going into the midterms that you're talking about impeachment as like a thing?
I don't know. You tell me. The people running for Congress in your party are talking about it every day.
No, actually
Absolutely.
Actually, they are talking every day about lowering costs. That's what they're talking about.
You well know that when asked directly, most Democrats say Donald Trump should be impeached again.
Most Democrats who are running for Congress have said that Trump should be impeached again?
You would be hard-pressed, I think, to find a Democrat who would go on the record and say, you know what? No. What they do say is everything he does is illegal, everything he does is unconstitutional, everything he does is worthy of some sort of
that's because the
punishment.
courts have said
So
it's
if you tell your
unconstitutional.
if you tell your base that, if you tell your base
said a lot
that,
of what he is doing
they'll
is
expect you to act
unconstitutional.
on it.
No, that's
Can
what
you
they're
guarantee
talking,
right now they won't
they're
impeach him?
talking.
You can't.
I think
we
that-
also don't know what Donald Trump's going
But
to
I
do
think that-
between
but I
in
think
the
that-
last 2 years.
I think that the American public also see the grift that is Donald Trump and Donald Trump Inc. and the Trump family and Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. I think that they see
changing the subject.
No.
He wants to impeach him.
No, what I'm saying is that the American public. Right now, we're talking about Trump's impeachment for his legacy.
You want to talk about President Biden and that grift?
major,
He was on the
major,
take from every major adversary.
First of all, what? Let's all back up. Let's just be extremely clear. The wealth of Donald Trump has grown exponentially. We haven't seen anybody make this many trades.
He's a real businessman.
No, he's a grifter. The difference is.
Listen to you.
Do you understand
the
that someone?
President of the United States.
Yes, and the President of the United States is
monetizing
benefiting off of the presidency. Do you not see that?
He's made more stock trades than any president in the history of this country.
Do you not see that?
He's literally
Unbelievable president working every day on behalf of the American
Can I ask you a
people
question?
to make their lives better.
Can I ask you a very just plain question?
Ask me
Has the President of the United States benefited or enriched himself by making stock trades, then mentioning then mentioning those same companies from his pedestal as President of the United States?
But I don't know if the president.
You don't know if Donald Trump's done this.
I haven't followed that, but I do know that
but
the
you know he's
senators
a great
and congressmen
president, but you don't actually know the facts about his financial well-being.
On several occasions, including when it comes to companies like Dell, he said at the White House, "Go buy Dell." Then hundreds of trades of that stock. The stock goes up, he benefits from it. And that's just one aspect of this. There's also his family doing business in drones, in cryptocurrency, and other areas where they are either getting contracts from the federal government or the president has the ability to regulate those industries to their benefit. So those are the types of questions that are on the table right now that are very real, and that I think, Bakari is hinting at. Democrats are going to look into
I think that
whether that looks like impeachment or not.
It's called accountability and oversight.
It might just be oversight, and that might be it.
But they
he's
do
not
want to impeach
trading
him.
himself.
You know they do.
No, they're going to do oversight. They will do oversight.
But
100%.
honestly,
You're guaranteeing no 1%
I will guarantee you
impeachment.
that they will
and
do
of course,
oversight,
members of
and they're going
Congress.
to look
No. Let's
into
back up. Let's be honest. Members of Congress always file impeachments. I mean, Shree filed an impeachment resolution. I believe Al Green filed an impeachment resolution. That's going to happen.
Really solid people.
But also, you're going to have Democrats who are talking like Sherrod Brown, who's talking about things like inflation.
Let me ask you a question. If you went to a Democratic political dinner tonight and somebody asked you in front of the crowd, should we impeach Donald Trump? And you said no, what would happen to you? Would you be thrown out in 3 seconds or 1 second?
Democrats are not running on impeachment, and that is not what they're talking to the American people. No, they aren't. It's a fact, Scott. They are not running on impeachment.
Don't ask me. I mean, I think the President of the United States should be impeached, but I ain't running for nothing.
All right, next for us, we're getting our first